Hello and welcome to the second tutorial for OziExplorer. Again, this is the digital mapping software that we use for most of our mapping functions in SVSAR. So today we're going to talk about how to create tracks in OziExplorer. We use tracks in OziExplorer to delineate search areas and outline search tracks along trails and shorelines, and we'll also use tracks for creating our probability areas. And so it's one thing that the search managers will often like to do is delineate the 50% probability area, and that would be the area around our initial planning point where theoretically and by statistics half of our subjects should be found. And of course, this depends on the nature of the subject. Is it a young child? Is it an 8-year-old? Is it a teenager? Or possibly is it a hunter? We look up in our lost person behavior book and under the identified subject type, and that would tell us what our probability areas should be. So let's get started. So creating tracks, we'll start with the 50% probability area, which is going to be a circle around our initial planning point. And we'll say that this Charcoal Creek campsite is our initial planning point. That was the last known point of our subject. Now, OziExplorer does not have a utility for dropping a circle onto the map. We have to freehand draw this circle. And many of us cannot do that really accurately, and luckily there is a template in Ozi that we can use. So if you'll click once on the initial planning point, which is a little campground, and then do right mouse click and show the compass at the cursor. So this will show our compass, and we're going to use this round compass as a template to draw a circle. And the search manager is going to tell us what the radius of that circle should be. And they will get that from the lost person's behavior manual. And for example, in this case, we'll have the manager tell us that they want the radius of this 50% probability area to be 1 kilometer. So all we need to do is, and then we're going to draw around this circle, we just need to zoom in and out of the map such that, and this compass will stay the same size even though the map is zooming in and out. And so the relative distance from center to the edge of the compass will change. It'll get bigger as we zoom out. So we want to measure this distance, and we do that by selecting this little measuring tool, show the distance and bearing display. So click on that once. And over here will be our distance. And so if we go back to initial planning point, it'll be very close to 0. And I'm going to move my cursor out to the compass, and it looks like we're almost at 0.4 of a kilometer. So we're going to zoom out on our map such that somewhere along the outside of this compass will be 1 kilometer. That was a radius that the search manager had requested. So here we are at the very outer limit of these lines. It's just about 1 kilometer. So we'll go with that. Okay. So now that we've had the correct zoom level on our map, we're going to create a track around the outside of this compass. So to create a track, we'll first go up here to the show and hide track control, and that brings the track control over here. And we make sure that we're on a new line because we do not want to add track points to a pre-existing track. And then the next thing we're going to do is either select this icon here for manually create track points, or the same icon that lives over here, and again it says manually create track points. So we'll select that, and you can see the cursor is now changed. It says track, and there's a little bullseye, and we're going to just go around this compass and click at multiple places. Now we can do this very slowly and very carefully, or we can move along a little bit more quickly depending on how much of a rush we're in. we may want it to be fairly accurate because this may well be an outside border of some of our search areas. So it doesn't take long to trace around. And again, we're only using this compass as a template. Somebody that has a super good eye and a good hand wouldn't need the aid, but most of us do. Okay, now there is our 50% probability area. So I'm going to unclick that manually create track points so I don't create any more track points. And I'm going to click again on show hide track control so it's up. I'm going to double click on the line of this track that we just created. And we can do a bunch of things here. We can change the name, and I would like to do that. I'm going to change this to 50% probability. We can leave it as a red. I'm going to make the line a little bit thicker though, make it 4 pixels instead of 2. And it isn't actually a line, it should be a polygon. It's going to be that whole area as opposed to just a singular line. So we change it to a polygon. And you can see how that put green hash marks all the way across that area. Now those hash marks will obstruct to some extent the detail of the map. So we can easily go into this field over here and click on the down arrow and change it to clear. And that got rid of all our hash marks. Now I'm also going to go into the circle with a right mouse click. Whoops, I have to close this thing up. So we created the track, it's saved in Aussie, but we need to save this track as a digital file on our computer as well. And then we can take that file and we can export it out in different formats that can be used in Google Earth and other mapping software. So let's click on this button here to save. Now we're going to save all of our information in a folder that's made for today's task. So under Documents, Task Documents, Current Year, then there will be a folder for this particular task. And we're going to call this task 210, 54, or 564. So this is a folder, and now we're going to name this particular track. So this is the name of the file. When you look in Windows Explorer, you will actually see this name. I'm going to name it the same name that we had for the track in Aussie up here. Okay, so we save the file. I can now close this dialog box, and now our track shows up here as the 50% probability. And I'm going to right click inside the compass and unclick the show compass cursor to get rid of the compass, and it just cleans everything up. Now when I zoom in and out, that track, because it's geo-referenced with our map, it will get larger and smaller. So it always stays the same relative diameter. Okay, now let's make a couple more tracks. Let's do just a linear track, which is going to be a search along this shoreline and drainage. And to do that again, we're going to click on the show and hide track control. We're going to select a new line. Otherwise, we would, if we don't select a new line, if we're up and have this one highlighted, it will add our new track points to that previous track and mess it up. So it's important we select a new line. And then again, select this button here for manually create track points. And then we just start at one end. And you can make as many points as you want to describe this line. Obviously, if it was a straight line from A to B, then you can just do 2 points, and that's all you would need. But because this is following a drainage, it meanders around a little bit. There we go. So that is our track. Now, because of how I'm recording this video, this track control box disappears on me all the time. So I just have to keep bringing it back. But in Aussie Tracker, it'll stay up for you. So I'm going to open up this line for the new track we created. And I'm going to give it a name. So it's assignment number 102. Let's go search area. I'm going to leave it as blue, but I'm going to make it a bit of a thicker line, change it to 4. It stays as a line. And now we're going to save this the same as we saved the 50% probability track. So save. Now it's defaulting right back to the folder for today's task, which is great. It makes it easy. We don't have to drill down every single time. But just to review that, I'm going to do it once more. Inside Documents, we go into Task Documents, and then Current Year, and then open up the folder for today's task. And here we are. And now we're going to name the file the same as what I called the track in Aussie. I think I had 102, so I'll save that. Perfect. Now we can close this dialog box, and that appears there. Okay. Now the other thing that I like to do is I like to create a search area. So instead of just a line, we're going to make an area that goes along this drainage here, and then returns along that track and this drainage. And so we're going to subscribe that or describe that area with a track. So again, we're going to bring back my track control, select a new line, and I am manually creating track points. And so we'll start at this drainage. And again, I can use as many points as I want to outline this search area. And oftentimes we will, I have to come right back up to my starting point or close to it. There we go. Now that I have done that, I'm going to bring back my track control box. I'm going to click on that line twice and open it up. And I'm going to give it a name. It's going to be 103. Search area. And again, I can make the line a bit wider, but I want to change its color just so it stands out from the blue one. Now it is not a line, it's going to be actually a big grid search. And so it's going to be an area or a polygon. So we'll select polygon. And I'll move this out of the way. Now you can see again, it has these green diagonal lines through it, the same as that 50% search area did. Now you can leave it that way if you want, but as I say before, it does obscure some of the detail of the map. So I'm going to go into the fill type and change that to clear to get rid of those diagonal hash marks. Now that we've finished that track off, we've called it polygon. We have it looking the way we want it to look, the correct color. We have to save it, and it's going to default to the correct folder. Now we just have to name it. And save. Okay. And I can get out of this dialog box. So here I have the 3 tracks that I've created today. One is the 50% probability area. One is just a linear track that'll go along a drainage or a trail or a roadway. And then the third one was this search area. Now, one thing I just wanted to go over is if by mistake we add a track point somewhere and it adds on to an existing track, it'll mess it up. So in this case, I'm still highlighted on this blue track. And so if I create a point over here, now it's going to mess up my track because it's just added that point. But we can easily get rid of that point. We're going to do that by bringing back our track control box and click on the track that we just messed up. And if I click this icon up here, it's going to show the track list. So it's going to show every single point that makes up that track. Now, the very last point that I entered is at the bottom of the list. So I click on this line, it will show that point with the bullseye. So now I know for sure that this is the point that I had entered, and so one that's in error. And so I'm going to click on the word delete, and it's gone. So I can close this, and that's how I can clean my track up. And so if you do make mistakes, it is possible to clean it up and get back to where you want it to be. Okay, and so I think that covers everything for how to create tracks in OziExplorer. Next tutorial, we'll go over how to label these search areas and how to set waypoints.